Greetings and welcome to DevLook at Batman Arkham Knight. It's been a while since I made a video because first there was an E3 and then there was a Steam summer sale, and no one is crazy enough to actually release any game during that time. And just shortly after all this, we got Batman Arkham Knight. It was released to all the platforms, PC, PS4, Xbox One, and reviewers actually got a copies of for consoles, and they was pretty happy with it. And then they released the game, and I will talk about the game briefly about the gameplay, but mostly I will be talking about software development, terrible performance of this game on a PC, and why that happened and why this stuff happens in software development in general. So if you want to know if the game is any good, then actually yes, I pre-ordered it. Yes, guilty. I already actually asked for a refund because I played 6 hours through it and it was all right until I got to the stage where there was like very particle intensive scenes and it started tanking. My computer is not exactly super high end, but it's not the cheapest one. GTX 970 is. It's one of the high-end cards, not like Titan X or whatever, but it's pretty good. I can run pretty much any game at high or ultra settings without too much problems. This one, it's locked at 30 FPS if you haven't heard yet. So it's locked at 30 FPS by default, and if you go to the config files to unlock it, and that's the only way to do this, there's actually a comment there near it: please don't make it 60 or something can break. And that's a blatant lie because nothing breaks, but the game just works terrible in general. So I unlocked it to 60, and actually if you are in inside areas, like inside of a house or in some basement or in the some chambers or bed cave or whatever, it works okay-ish. It's more or less stable 60 FPS, but once you go out and once you're trying to do something in the city, which is now, by the way, an open city, and it's an open world game about Batman actually, which makes it even more sad that the fact that it actually doesn't work correctly. The frame rate starts jumping from 60 to 30 to 20 sometimes. And if you get onto your car, so now there's a way to ride around in a car, the FPS tanks even more, with sometimes dropping as low as, I think like the lowest for me was something about 20 frames per second. That's not as bad as for some people, so I guess my config was pretty close to what developers used, and I was lucky because it was not terrible. So I played the game actually for 5 hours or so, and I mostly did the campaign, so that's why I went that far. If you play the game, you know where I am right now, and it's like middle of the game probably. But, middle of the campaign, obviously. But the game has a lot of content, it's an open world game, and there's a lot of things and side quests and riddles, obviously. And all this stuff is very well made, it's developed by Rocksteady, the guys who did the first Batman. And it feels very well, it feels solid gameplay-wise, but performance just kills it. So why do I care about 60 FPS, you may ask? Well, this, if you still think that 30 FPS is enough for an action game or for any game, I have an interesting fact for you. So recently, not exactly very recently, but I think about half a year ago, there was another developer conference on web development. So the guys who do browsers, like Mozilla, Google, so Google Chrome team, Firefox team, Internet Explorer team from Microsoft. And what they actually said at this conference is that all of the browser vendors are aiming to make browser animations work at 60 frames per second on the web because this is the optimal performance. So I have a short question. Why the hell do the browser guys say that 60 FPS is optimal performance while game developers who are actually delivering us, interactive experience, this interactive 3D experience, are saying that 30 is good enough? Something doesn't really adds up here. So if you hear that next time, then ask why browsers are better than games. So it's a bit of a silly thing, but well. So why exactly does thing like this? So let's start with the core of a problem. So why exactly is it so poorly optimized? What's wrong with it? Some people, and there was a lot of discussions on Reddit and stuff, were blaming it on bad port. The thing is that with the modern generation of consoles like PS4 and Xbox One, there is really no such thing as porting anymore, because both Xbox One and PS4 are so similar to your PC that it's basically the same machine. Sure, they have some tiny little differences, like mostly software-wise actually, because they're both running AMD systems, and those are x86 systems, so there's nothing special about them. It's not like PS3 cell processor that was crazy new technology that it took people like several years to figure out how to use it properly. It's x86 architecture, and everyone knows how to work with it. Everyone knows exactly how to program for it, and people have been doing this for past, 30 years already, 40. How long do we have x86 architecture? 30 probably. And, there's no need to learn something. It's just your computer. It has fixed specs, so that's easier for developers because they don't have to account for a wide range of hardware and, deal with the hardware specific problems. They just have one thing, and it's always easier when you just need to account for one specific set of hardware. Like look at the way that, for example, mobile vendors do this. So Android always has problems with soft compatibility, but on the other hand, iOS does not, because they have just one set of hardware. Like, okay, now there's a bit more sizes, but that doesn't really change as much under the hood of it. So it's the same architecture, and people know exactly how to work with it. And another thing is that, since it's the same architecture, you don't really need to port anything. So all of the modern engines, like Unreal Engine 3, which is used for Batman Arkham Knight, are able to just cross-compile for needed target. What that means is that you have to write the code that will not have any platform-specific things in it, which might be a problem sometimes. That's why you have separate teams for separate platforms that will adjust those specific pieces of code to match the specific platform. And then just hit a button and get a binary that can run on your platform. And that's about it. The thing is that if we take a look at, say, Xbox One, then even software-wise, it's very close to your Windows PC, because Microsoft, they decided not to invent anything new, and they just took Windows Core, I think it's NT Core, and used it to create their Xbox One operating system, which, makes sense. It's a PC, so let's just make our own operating system with DRM and use it to run games. Why not? That's really easy to do, and that's really good thing, because now they have this Windows Universal Platform, and they can do even more stuff with that. So it's like write one, run on all Windows devices would be a reality. With PS4, it's a bit more tricky, because yes, okay, it runs an x86 processor, it has AMD hardware inside, but the operating system, as far as I remember reading about, is actually based on FreeBSD or BSD Core, a heavily modified one. So it's not exactly really close to what the Windows machines do, but it still uses OpenGL, which is not a very new technology. And, again, people have been using OpenGL for ages, at least 10 years, I think even more than that. And they know how it works. There's no problems about doing it. Unreal Engine was supporting OpenGL from version 1, if I remember correctly. So, Unreal Engine 3 for sure knows how to run OpenGL and compile to OpenGL and use OpenGL properly. No issues here. Once again, all you have to do to export your binary to a different platform is make sure your code is working on that platform. You don't have any other platform-specific code that is not covered, and just hit a button and off you go. You have your binary for PS4, PC, whatever. So all those people that was discussing and saying, oh, look, Batman Arkham Knight was for PC was developed by a team of 12 people. Well, it actually wasn't. Those 12 people were taking care of those platform-specific things that are, that might have caused some problems during the compilation. That's that's my guess. I'm not saying that is how it was, but this is my guess, and this is, the stupidest thing in software development. Is the simplest and stupidest thing is usually how it was. With regards to bugs, with regards to issues, and with regards to development as well. So it's not magic here. So another thing is that I am, I'm very curious why exactly does it works okay on PS4 and Xbox One. I mean, okay, they lock it at 30 FPS there as well, but it actually works and runs there way better than on PCs. And maybe these 12 people who adjusted the PC version are at fault, because they did integrated the NVIDIA GameWorks SDK, and they made a terrible job, because as soon as you try to enable this stuff, the game just starts tanking down to, I don't know, what was it, 12 FPS? So basically I had to turn off half of the options to make it work more or less okay, and then I had to go to config and turn off even more. But it's a bit of a strange situation, because as far as I've seen the screenshots, the console games look better than PC games. I do not have any explanation for this. And the only reason that, I can find is that basically they used the consoles and console SDK for development. Later, they just gave the code to the team that was responsible for PC. They adjusted it so that it compiles and runs, and that's it. So they added GameWorks without really checking, if it actually impacts the performance, and that was all their work. You know why? Most likely because they did not have time. 90% of the problems in software development come from crappy management. As soon as your manager tells you that, you have to ship this today, and, well, you don't really have any choice, tell them. I'm pretty sure that all of those developers, if you would tell them, like, guys, can we ship it today? They would tell you, no, let's do this, let's continue developing. We need to fix it. We need like 1 more month. But of course, management would not be happy about that. So they just forced them to ship it in a broken state. The question here is, where exactly does this problem comes from? Was it mismanagement in the Rocksteady studios? Was it Warner Brothers who pushed the developer as a publisher? Was it something else? I mean, they delayed the game several times. I have no idea why that could have happened. So basically, if they would be sane and give this to the team of PC developers to work in parallel with the console version, there would be no problems, but they didn't. And, look at how this turned out. By the way, there are some mild spoilers in the video right now, so if you are planning to play the game and do not want to see them, just feel free to not watch on the screen in the next couple of minutes or so. I will tell you once it's gone. Okay, so we're talked about the ports issues, and now let's talk about Warner Brothers issues and about the reason why I asked for a refund. I actually, the time when the game did not work as shit, I had a hell of a lot of fun. I mean, of course, there are some issues with it, like, for example, the Batmobile handles like complete ass when you're driving it, not in a tank mode, but in a car mode. It might be related to the performance issues, actually, because, as I said, when you ride the car, the FPS drops to like 20 frames per second, and that's just dreadful. But again, I think it maybe is just the physics of the car are not very well fleshed, and there are several boss fights involving riding the car, and yeah, they are not very fun because car does not handle properly. I died like 20 times on one of them just because I couldn't ride into this one tiny narrow thing that I need to ride into. It's not very good, but other than this, riding around the town and do all this free roaming, fighting with drones, it's pretty fun. And this time around, the game has actually quite much more variety than before, and they vary the enemies a lot more. They add new tricks to them so that, sometimes you cannot detect the enemies using your like kind of detective vision. Sometimes enemies will detect you if you use detective visions. There are enemies that control drones who can detect you, and so on and so forth. There is a lot of enemy variety this time around, and this includes the melee fighting, which is actually also pretty fun. And all of this makes me even more sad because the storyline is also awesome, and I want to finish this game. I want to beat it, and I want to see, what's going to be the end. I want to play the DLC because all of the side missions as well looks pretty fun. It's not your typical open world game when they just shovel in the stuff for you to do while you're driving from A to B on the main quest. No. The side quests are as well pretty cool, and there's actually stories behind them, and there's like crime investigations, and you can apprehend the evil guys and bring them into the GCPD, and it's really cool, but it works so bad that I cannot play it. So after 5 hours of trying to play it, and I mean, once again, when I was inside of the buildings, I enjoyed myself a lot because there was just insanely good combat. I mean, the Batman combat, so there's nothing really super new about it. I don't even think they've added any new gadgets. No, they did one. I won't spoil it, but they did add one gadget, and it's just another iteration essentially, but it's an open world and it's pretty cool. But this performance just kills everything. So what I can say is basically, if you like Batman series, I would definitely recommend playing this one, but not yet, if ever. My problem with it is that Warner Brothers took it down from sale and said, okay, we give refunds to everyone who will want them. And we are working on a patch. Sounds good, right? So my concern is that with the last game, Arkham Origins, they said that the patch was not their priority and they don't know if they will release it ever, if you remember that situation. And for some people, the Arkham Origins game still works like crap. They still haven't fixed it. So all this situation with like, we're working on patch but don't know when it will be up, which sounds a bit strange. You always have some sort of estimations in software development. It's not magic, and you always can say, okay, we need like 2 weeks to fix all of this. I guess for this game it probably will take more like a month, but maybe not. I mean, I don't know. So that depends on how bad is their source code is. Maybe there's just some little optimizations required. It's an Unreal Engine after all, it's not like it's some rocket science and they cannot ask for the Epic Studios support, and again, NVIDIA helping them with optimizations, so it should not be too much of a trouble. But they are not naming any days, they're just saying it's coming. And then Warner Brothers notifies all the vendors to give refunds when asked unconditionally, which is a bit strange. It's like it's almost like they are saying like, okay, so we are maybe not gonna fix it. So if you do want to play in a Batman game, or specifically this Batman game, which is pretty cool, you have two options. One, buy a console. From what I've heard, it works pretty much okay on the consoles, and yeah, okay, you will be playing in 30 FPS, but if that's not a problem for you, I know that some people are fine with that. If it's not a problem for you, then playing in console would be absolutely fine. Other option is to wait until they release a Game of a Year edition and see if people still have problems with it. Because then we will have all the DLCs, and actually the Harley Quinn DLC that was the pre-order one, which I guess is gonna change really soon because of their screw-ups. And just check, if they fixed it, if people are happy now, because if you look at the reviews now on Steam Store, there are a bit more than 11,000 reviews, and 35% of them are positive. Just 35%. And if I scroll down to the reviews, like most helpful ones, All of them are negatives. This is how bad this game is. And people are furious. There are some people with incredible configs there. i7 4790K, Radeon R9 290X, that's like top Radeon card, and 32 gigs of RAM. 32. And the guy writes, I have PS4. PS4 game still runs better. That's ridiculous. So if they will not fix this, do not buy this game. I mean, you know, obviously you can buy it on Steam and then just ask for a refund if it doesn't work for you. But from what I've heard, there's very little of people for who it actually works in any playable way. Like for me, it was okay-ish until I got to that point with a lot of particles, and then it just went to hell. And again, you know, if you look at the screen, I left the FPS counter running, so it's something like 40 FPS on average, maybe a bit less. It's okay, but I would prefer stable 60, like any time of the day. But the storyline was so intriguing that I suffered through it basically. And yeah, you know, unless they fix all of that, I wouldn't even touch it. It's just bad. And this is another reminder that the name of the studio, of developer studio, is not the reason to pre-order anything. Because, you know, I thought, okay, Rocksteady, they are, you know, they're really good. The Arkham Asylum, okay, it was bugged in the very beginning, but they fixed it, and, you know, there was no problems. It was a couple of weeks, I think, after they released the game. There was like patches coming out, everything was fixed, everything was fine. Sure, there was problems, hiccups, but this time is just dreadful, and looks like Warner Brothers are just don't give a shit about it. It's very, very sad, and I'm really interested in how this will develop, but what I can say is, you know, please don't pre-order games, and please don't buy Batman Arkham Knight before it's actually fixed, because it's just bad for everyone. It's not just bad for you, it's bad for industry as well. If publishers and developers are allowed to release games that are this broken and people will still buy them and give them money, then we're doomed and we're gonna get broken crap year after year. But, you know, it looks like now with Steam, at least now we have the Steam refund, and for some reason Warner Brothers decided to refund everyone else also, because I, for example, pre-ordered it on Greenman Gaming for with a nice 40% discount. And they also did a refund and they honored it. So it's, I don't know, it looks strange. But yeah, it makes me very sad to see the very promising and a very cool game be that shitty because of purely crappy management. I mean, I'm pretty sure if you would leave it in the hands of developers, it would be delayed for a year more, but it would be pretty much perfect because somehow most of the developers are perfectionists by nature. And I guess let's end it on this note. So this was Batman Arkham Knight. Please don't buy it just yet, but add it to your wish list and, you know, wait for sale, look for the patches. The game itself is great if you like Batman's, and the open world adds a lot of pretty interesting things and scenarios going on. And the car is fun in a tank mode, but terrible in a car mode. But the performance just kills it. It's really, you know, you won't be playing the game, you will be fighting with your PC version basically most of the time. All right, thank you for watching, and as always, see you in the next update. Bye!